Okay, we're back with our second hour of Justice for All. I'm George Yates, and it's another hour of hopefully you're enjoying our show today. We just had a great guest, but we are now going to be talking, sports in the next hour, and why not? We love to talk sports on this show from time to time, and we've got Kate Delaney with us, and she's an avid sports fan and a sports writer, and does some radio work, and has written this a new book called Level the Playing Field. And how are you doing, Kate?
George, great to be on the show. It's always fun to talk sports.
Well, Dee here, my engineer, we talk sports, off the record a lot of times, and it was Super Bowl. We had a little show, and it's March Madness. That's fun to talk about. We got baseball. What's your favorite subject these days?
I think NFL always rules. The power of the NFL, there's no question about it. Even with all of the obstacles and things that happened this year, you know this from a legal point of view, but the stats don't lie. People are just glued to anything that has to do with the NFL. I do a show on NBC Sports Radio, and that's all that people want to talk about. But
isn't that amazing? Because I just got my USA Today Sports Weekly, because I get this every week. Actually, my brother used to get it. He passed away last November, so I get his magazine. He was my greatest. I had a brother who was 8 years older than me, and when I was a little boy, he was just a sports nut. So, he taught me this love of sports. And here we are with the USA Today. And look, it's baseball. We got March Madness, but who have we got on the cover? Chip Kelly reshapes the Eagles. So you're right. You can't ever get away from the NFL. And I was just talking to Dee. I said, so what are we going to talk about today, with Kate? And he goes, oh, well, the NFL Sports Combine. So here we are. We've got basketball. We got spring baseball, but we're going to talk the NFL. So, but your book starts out with the NFL, doesn't it?
It does. And it's exactly like I said. I grew up in a sports family. My uncle played pro hockey and won the Stanley Cup, and I had a cousin that almost won the Triple Crown in horse racing with a horse called Smarty Jones. But still, it all revolves around the pigskin. It all revolves around football, no question. That's why I started with football.
What in the world? Why is it that what is it about the NFL that captures our attention over all these other sports?
You know what I think it is? I really do. I think it's the gladiator complex. We like it. We like to see that suited up on the field, man against man, those breathless moments and the jerseys we wear and the allegiance that we show to the teams. Plus, it's really, once you get into the season, only once a week we talk about it, gear up for it, play our fantasy football, and then it's that perfect Sunday, or now I guess they have games starting on Thursday.
Yeah.
But it's once a week. It's once a week that we're really primed and pumped to go, and we talk about it all the time.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, so what's going on then? What's the latest in the what is it about the NFL? What's the latest story?
Well, I think you said it when you talked about the USA Today. And you talked about Chip Kelly and the Eagles. And, in fact, even with everything that they're doing and retooling and the crazy question marks about why is Chip Kelly doing this and why does he get Sam Bradford and ditch Nick Foles, for goodness sake, who was incredible just a couple of years ago. What are they doing? I think the Eagles are a big question. And then they also lose Chuck Bednarik, who was one of the all-time, and I interviewed him, one of the all-time tough-as-nails guys, was really a Philadelphia Eagle way, 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 way back then. And people are talking about his impact on the game and how he felt about players. He told me once that he thought players were sissified now, and he dies, the legend, at 89. So there's a lot of conversation, I think, about him and about also players and concussions. And are other players going to dip out early because of some of the things that are happening on the field to them? That was a huge story this week.
Well, that's going to be the huge story for a long time to come, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And who is the player that just retired after 1 year?
Oh, I can't think of his name now off the top of my head.
24 years old.
He's 24 years old.
Played 1 year.
He played 1 year, and he was absolutely he was absolutely contributing and was leaving millions behind now by doing that. And I think that makes the NFL nervous because they don't want to see players drop out like that.
So how much longer do you think the NFL will be the only sport in America that people want to talk about with this concussion thing? How long before that goes away, if ever? I mean, it's.
I don't think it ever goes away. The thing that has to happen in any of the big four sports, I call them, is they have to watch that they keep younger people interested. Because, if the 10, 11, 12-year-olds, they're not interested, they're bored at baseball games, or they're not into the football teams, whatever the team is that their father's rooting for, their family's rooting for, then you start to see them drop off and they like the extreme sports, skateboarding, or things in the cage, of course, when you're talking about MMA, that's big with kids. So do you lose the interest there? But the NFL is trying not to do that, and so are some of the other sports, in trying to really pull the younger people into it.
I guess the rules changes. You've seen it a lot in the last couple of years. They're flagging a lot more of these head-to-head hits. It's going to change the way they're going to. It's going to become more of a finesse sport. I think it's going to have to change in order for these guys to stay in the game. In order to avoid some of the concussions and the problems with the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. If you've ever been down on the field, I used to fly with the Cowboys, and from seeing it from afar, and when I say afar, in the press box, which is always in the sky, or going down to the locker room is one thing, or even going to practices. But when you're on the field on game day, I mean, they're like freight trains. The speed of the game is incredible, and how they smash into each other on the line. It's amazing the hits that they take and how fast they move, and it's a whole different feel once you see it from that perspective.
And you wonder at what point then, if they take the violence out of the game, will the interest in the game wane also?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, think of hockey. They always say, "Oh, we don't want these, we don't want dirty hits," and we're instituting better calls, and we're looking at our referees. But then, whenever there's a fight or whenever something happens, they play Pat Benatar's "Hit Me with Your Best Shot." The entire the entire stadium. It's not really a stadium, ice rink. They get up. Everybody gets up, and they're glued to what's happening. So we like fights.
Of course. It's like watching a stock car race without a crash. Come on. I mean,
exactly.
If you got a stock car race without a crash, I mean, you don't want to see the driver die or anything, but you just don't. The crashes are what makes it interesting.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that's the way it happens to be. So, well, listen. So how did you get so interested in sports as a girl? How did that happen?
I think that my grandfather, I think really what drew me in is my grandfather used to watch all sports, and I really liked my grandfather. So from the time when I was little, I would sit with him and would watch football, and I would watch hockey, and I would watch golf because he was a big golfer, and I paid attention to it. I just really liked those conversations with him. And it just continued on as I got older. I wasn't a tomboy. I played tennis, and I love golf, and I play a lot of golf. And that interest continued, and I was a television anchor woman, and the guys in the sports department were pushing me to go into sports, and that's how I flipped over in my career, and I just absolutely love it. I love the competition. I like everything about sports.
I've got 3 daughters myself, and I got my 13-year-old. I cannot get her to sit down and watch a game with me. Now, I'll say, okay, listen, I'll watch Glee with you, right? But now you have got to sit down and watch a football game with me. She goes, Dad, I'll watch the halftime of the Super Bowl, and that's it. I go, so what's the secret? How do I get mine? I got 2 younger ones. How do I get them to sit down? Actually, my 3-year-old will actually sit and watch the Yankees with me in the summertime. I'll get the game on, and she will sit and watch the game with me. But I want to keep that interest going. I want to be able to take them to a game when they're older, when they're 13 and 15, and be interested in it like you were. How do I do it?
Well, I think what you just said there is what will make a difference. It's you actually go to a game because people are excited. They pump up rock music or pop music, and your one daughter, I'll watch the halftime. Katy Perry's a halftime entertainment. She's excited, and that's the kind of tunes they play. So she'll be interested in it more if you actually take her to a game, because then she can see, and she'll see the excitement of the people in the stands, and I think she'll get into it.
Yeah. Well, now your book is called Level the Playing Field: Balls, Brats, and Other BS. When was this book released?
I just updated it. It was released a couple years ago, and we just did the updated version to include new things that happened in the NFL and college hoops and some other things that came out 3 years ago.
So tell us about yourself. You talk about being doing NBC and all of that. What else do you do besides write this book? I know you're involved on the radio and in television quite often. Tell us what you're up to these days.
I do a nightly show. It's called America Tonight, and on that show it's sports, politics, business, calls, and I talk about what I think the buzz is in the backyard and what everybody should be talking about or what they are talking about. And then I put some ha-ha funny in that because that's a 4-hour show, 5 days a week at night. And I have comedians come on because I'm a lousy joke teller, and I'll have them try to teach me how to rework a joke.
And is that radio? Is that radio or television?
It's radio.
Wow.
It's radio. Mm-hmm.
Is that syndicated?
It's syndicated, yes. America Tonight. If you go to americatonight.net, you'll see more about the show.
Wow. 4 hours a night, 5 nights a week. How do you do it? How do you do it? That's incredible.
You know what? It's just so exciting. I love radio. I really do. There's something about the connection with the people that you talk to in interviews, or the people with the callers, or whatever it is. The conversation, the ability to have that conversation that's unabated. And I like TV too, but when you do TV, you have such a short amount of time. 1 minute here or a couple of minutes there. You don't get a lot of time at television compared to radio. So
is this are you on a live radio station too? Or what station are you on?
I'm on, it's syndicated, so it's on all around the country, different places. It's on in, Sarasota, Chicago, Philadelphia, all over the place.
America Tonight. So do you do call-ins and people, or do you when you do let's say you're doing a 4-hour show Monday, who do you have guests already scheduled? Or are you gonna how do you prepare for? Let's see, what's that? 20 hours of radio per week. How do you prepare for that?
That's crazy. Well, it's like a couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington for the Supreme Court oral arguments. King versus Burwell, the whole subsidies thing. And there I was doing a remote right across from the Supreme Court. So the guests were already set up. There were some senators and congressmen and people involved in healthcare and just everyday people and what they thought about, good or bad. Is this what you want to see happen? So sometimes I'll do remotes. That's pretty big on the show. And a lot of times I'll just look ahead, what's happening in Washington, what's going on in sports. I'll talk about the tournament coming up on Monday, and I've got a couple of guests where we're going to talk about Boston and what's happening in Boston with the Tsarnaev trial. I've got somebody that's at the trial that's going to come on, and a defense attorney to talk about that angle of it. So sometimes I'll plan ahead, but news breaks and things happen, and that changes everything. I remember when Osama bin Laden, when they got Osama bin Laden, that was a Sunday late, and I had a great show planned. We just ripped up those plans, and we went with, okay, who am I getting in Washington, and who am I getting that's a former SEAL, and we roll with whatever the hot news is.
So you just get somebody to start calling people on the phone and getting them to just start, and you do a lot of remote, a lot of phone call interviews?
Yeah, oh yeah. Since it's radio, that's also the difference. With television, it's harder because, you have to be there for that, unless you do a Skype interview. I've been on a bunch of stations lately talking about the brackets, and so there they had me on Skype, and that works. But it's different with television. Usually you go to a studio versus there's a lot of things remotely you can do in radio.
America Tonight. Well, here we are with Kate Delaney, who is the host of America Tonight, which is on 5 nights a week for 4 hours. What an incredible job that must be. Well, listen, we were talking about the brackets. My brackets, of course, busted for sure. But I had Louisville going. I had Louisville going well deep into the tournament. Last night I was watching it. I was going, uh-oh, this isn't good. I thought they were gone, and somehow they pulled that game out. What's been your most? Have you been watching some of the games? And
oh yeah, I'll tell you what my biggest blunder was that I really thought was going to be huge with SMU. I thought SMU was going to beat UCLA, and I thought it would be close. And of course, then there was a crazy goaltending call, and they ended up losing by a point. So that was disappointing. That was my biggest bust. Also, Iowa State. Fred Hoiberg, who's the coach there, I thought he had that team so ready, and he did. and they barely lost that one. But my Final Four is still intact. Kentucky, Villanova, Arizona, and Duke. I think that that's what your Final Four is going to be, and it's hard to go against Kentucky because if you look at how deep they are and John Calipari, the way that they've taken care of business all year, if they win, you got to think about this, George. If they win, they will have won 40 games straight by the time they cut down those nets. And the last time you had an undefeated team was 1976 in Indiana. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and ordinarily I always like to root for the underdogs, but I'm wanting to see them run the table for some reason. I've got them playing Duke in the final and beating Duke. I penciled in Louisville all the way to the Final Four. I figure, well, you got to, why not? Just throw something out there. Who else? I think I've got Wisconsin running in there too. So I think this is my Final Four. But I've got them beating Duke. Who knows what's going to happen? But I had UCLA beating SMU in that first game, so at least I'm winning on that one. Yeah, but
Wisconsin. You're picking Wisconsin, so you have Wisconsin going all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah, you know what? I have no. I just you got to pick some unpredictable ones.
No, I think that's a good pick. The Badgers winning the Big Ten, they were great, and they've got the Player of the Year, Frank Kaminsky, who's amazing.
Right.
So that's not a bad pick at all. Wisconsin is a good pick to represent. I just like Arizona's chances better, but I wouldn't poo-poo the Badgers. You may be in the money.
Well, I think I think they got to beat Carolina along the way, and that was my, I saw that. I had them paired up. I saw, who's going to win this one? And, I'm an ACC guy. I went to Wake Forest. Of course, we haven't been anywhere near the tournament in a long time, but too bad. But so I kind of like to pull for some of the ACC teams. I thought, but I think that I just picked Wisconsin to go all the way in. But you gotta. What was it? What was the statistic I saw the other day? The numbers of brackets that there are. It's off the charts. It's the number of different brackets is just it's astronomical, isn't it?
You know what the number is? It's a quintillion. I never even heard of that. A quintillion is the number. That's how many possible brackets. Which that's insane. You probably have a better chance to win the lottery than win a perfect bracket.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you've got Arizona going in, and so we got some games tonight and then some tomorrow too. So it's you've got. Are you going to go to any of these games or do any kind of remotes for your show?
No, because I did the Supreme Court thing and then I've got something happening in New York, this was one of the times I've been to so many. This was one of the times that I was like, this year I'm going to skip it and cover it from afar and have some players on or coaches on, but not actually go to any of the sites this time around. So
as in addition to your America Tonight radio show and then you're writing this book, is this this is your main book? Have you written any other books?
Well, I've got another book coming out in the fall. It's called What's Your Wow? And What's Your Wow has nothing to do with sports or nothing to do with politics necessarily or any of that. What's Your Wow is kind of like the modern day elevator pitch. I found, George, that I've run into so many people that have that 8-second moment, because our attention span is about 8 seconds, where they meet somebody, they're at a lunch, they're excited, and they can't really tell them what they do when they're asked that question. And everybody has a wow, but they usually don't lead with it. If they would just take a breath, lead with their wow, then probably the conversation would continue. And who knows, lead to business, lead to an opportunity, whatever it is. I'll give you an example. My wow number is I've interviewed 12,000 people. And when I say that, you take a pause and they say, wow, well, what do you do? And it elicits that wow. And everybody has one. No matter how old they are or how young they are or in between, everybody has some sort of a wow.
So the first question that comes out, what do? You're supposed to answer the one thing that's going to make that person say wow.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I have a buddy who has a flower shop in New York where it's really competitive. There's all kinds of florists all over the place. And he would go to these different meetings and meetups and conferences, and he said he felt like, well, I'm just another flower guy. I have a business. I'm a small business owner. I do okay, but I want to do better. And I said, well, what do you tell people you do that you need outside of the business? And he would, I own a flower shop. And I said, why don't you tell them I make people smile? just take a pause. I make people smile. And whenever he started to say that, it piqued the interest of whoever he was talking to. And he says it's really helped him. He put it on a business card, and he's become more of a personality, and people seek him out now. People who weren't clients now go to his flower shop, and it's just because that's what he does. Whether it's a sad occasion, a happy occasion, whatever, he makes people smile. He perks them up on a lousy day or a great day.
So before you interviewed 12,000 people, what was your wow?
I guess my wow was getting into the business in the first place. From the time I was a little girl, I was a talker. My father said that they couldn't even put me down at night. They would put me down and I'd be fine, but they could hear me talking in the background.
To yourself?
So my wow is that my passion was to talk, and that I actually was able to go into a career that I love and was the right fit for me from the time I was a baby.
So your wow before you interviewed 12,000 people was I can talk to I can interview a ham sandwich and get a 4-hour radio show out of it.
Exactly. I can talk to the wall from my crib, and then it makes sense.
So let's see. Your book's called Level the Playing Field, and it's called Balls, Brats, and Other BS. What are the brats? You're not talking about the ones you eat, are you?
No, it's funny. A lot of people think that because of the title. When I say brats, I mean, kind of brats in sports. People who have done stupid things like your A-Rods. I
was about to say,
and other
I knew that would be first on your list, A-Rods.
Yeah.
I saw he hit another home run, though. I mean, he's hit 2 home runs in spring training. I'm wondering, the only way he gets through all of this nonsense is if he goes out and hits about 40 home runs this year and then shows negative on the drug screens. Maybe he might survive this stuff he's been through.
Oh, I agree. I think that the New Yorkers are really tired of the A-Rod scene, but if he is knocking the cover off the ball and contributing, they're not going to care in the long run.
No, they won't. And that's what it's going to be all of. If he gets out there, I mean, he's 2 home runs so far. So, I think that I'm a Yankee fan since I was about 6 years old because I was a big. I don't even want to give away my age now, Kate, but. I liked Mickey Mantle when I was little, so that was it. Okay, what team does he play for? He just had that little cap. I was too young to even know what it meant, and I saw the little NY. Oh, okay, well I like that team, whatever it is. And then people go, "Oh, you're just a Yankee fan." I go, little did I know that within only a very short time, they wouldn't win anything for 15 years. And that was the Yankee fan that went into they didn't do anything all the way through the late '60s and mid '70s. So.
Yeah, but the Yankees are a team, they're America's team in a way, because they're a team that you either love or they're a team that you absolutely hate, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in football.
Right.
America's team, you either love and embrace them. They're like rock stars on the road in unbelievable places like Wisconsin and Philadelphia and San Francisco to some people, or you just absolutely hate them and you want them to lose.
But it doesn't really matter because no matter where they go, they fill the stadium.
Yep, absolutely.
And they're the number one team that everybody wants to come play. So we're here with Kate Delaney. We're going to take a short break here. Can you stay with us for a little bit longer?
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll be right back with a little commercial here, and then we'll be back with Kate Delaney, author of Level the Playing Field.
Are you prepared to defend yourself and your family against any threat? Veteran-owned and operated One Shot Trading Post is ready to make sure that you are. Continuing training and classes on defense, survival, and weapons. Full gunsmithing services, special orders and financing available with military discounts. $15 transfers, and One Shot Trading Post is always looking to buy, sell, or trade. Located at 4366 Holland Road at South Plaza Trail, make sure that you're ready for anything at One Shot Trading Post, 463-5893, OneShotTradingPost.com.
RM Designs T-shirt printing and more is located in Smithfield, but serves all of Hampton Roads. They specialize in vinyl design shirts, apparel, window stickers, cups, and other specialty gifts. They also have rhinestone and embroidery designed apparel, and they offer Pandora-style beads and hardware to create a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. RM Designs T-shirt printing and more caters to businesses, sports teams, churches, groups, and family reunions. They also offer a great fundraising package should you be in need of money for a special project. And they also do home parties if you and your friends would like to get together and make your own creations. RM Designs T-shirt printing and more can be reached at 757 757-255-9140. That's 757-255-9140. Email them at rmdesigns11@aol.com or find them on Facebook at RM Twisted Designs. You can also place orders directly off their store at storeenvy.com/RM Twisted Designs.
Hi, this is Greg Picaveras. Join me for Sports Scene each Wednesday from noon to 1 right here on News Talk 1650 WHKT. You can also hear the show on TuneIn as well. We will talk to local, regional, and nationally acclaimed sports guests, and we'll interact with our audience as well at Greg Pick on Twitter. Sports Scene, Wednesdays from noon to 1 right here on 1650 AM.
Denby Baptist Christian School is now enrolling students for the upcoming 2015-2016 school year. Denby Baptist Christian School offers a quality Christian education for students in kindergarten through the 12th grade and an early learning center for preschool children ages 2.5 to 4. DBCS is a ministry of Denby Baptist Church located in the Oyster Point section of Newport News, offering education marked by a biblical worldview, academic excellence, extracurricular activities, and affordability. Denby Baptist Christian School offers daily Bible classes and a weekly chapel service. Call and schedule your tour at Denby Baptist Christian School, 13010 Mitchell Point Road, Newport News. Call 757-249-2654. The mission of Denby Baptist Christian School is to educate the mind, nurture the soul, and shape the character of each student in a Christ-centered environment based on the truth of God's Word. Online at dbcs.org and dbcs-kids.org.
If finances are holding you back from enrolling your kids or grandkids in private Christian schools, call the radio station at 488-1010. We have a partnership program with several schools on the peninsula and the south side that allows us to offer a 35% discount off tuition for preschool through the 12th grade. Give us a call today at 488-1010 or visit our website at tuitionsolution.org. Did we mention we added daycares to the site? tuitionsolution.org.
Okay, we're back with Kate Delaney. I see that you love golf, and we got the Masters coming up soon, and so we got the Masters, and the golf season's coming up. We got Tiger Woods. Is Tiger going to be playing in the Masters?
Boy, it's such a great question because he bowed out of one of the big tune-ups, and he's had problems with his back. And I guarantee if I'm CBS, I want him to play in the Masters because it's whatever Tiger Woods does, he is always the most fascinating guy out there, and people identify with him for better or worse, whatever, because he's still a superstar despite what happened in his personal life. I think people have gotten over that, and I don't know. He wants to go to the Masters, but he has to be in playing shape where his back isn't bothering him, or he's not going to go and put himself in that spot.
I mean, there's another massive reversal. He's a guy that I always used to root against. I say, well, I'm not going to root for Tiger. He's the favorite. Let's root for some of these little guys to knock him off. And, of course, he would always seem to pull it out. You make the putt and beat the little guy, and you go, God, this guy was just absolutely unbelievable. And now you're kind of feeling sorry for him. It's hard to feel sorry for a guy that's that successful. His girlfriend, Lindsey Vonn, just won the World Cup in the downhill, and what an incredible story that is. I guess she'll be there cheering him on at the Masters, so that's just a great story. What's the Masters without Tiger Woods playing in it?
It's not the same. I mean, there's some great, exciting young players, the Ricky Fowlers, Jordan Spieth, who just won last week, right. And it's fun to watch him. But people who golf know those names, but people who are kind of the fringe fans don't really know those players. And it's all about, if I'm the commissioner of the PGA, it's all about how do I get more people to get hooked into my game. They started this thing, George, where it was you can still play nine, so that younger right. people that say, oh, golf is boring, it's for old people, and it's 18 holes. I don't have time, 18 holes. Are you kidding? I've got to tweet, I've got to Snapchat, I've got to do a million other things. Well, 9 holes, less time.
Yeah, I love playing 9 holes. That's one of my favorite things because I've always felt that way about golf. I mean, I love the game, but a lot of times 9 holes is perfect. I can go out, take a summer night and pop out leave the office around 5 and go walk 9 holes and still have a beer and be home by 8 o'clock. It's awesome.
Right, and that's what they're trying to push so that they can get more people interested, future people, and that way keep growing golf, because golf courses, frankly, are hurting. There's less are being built, some are going out of business, and you rely on that recreational guy or woman or kids to keep pumping the sport up.
Well, and it's Obama's sport now.
There's how many times does he play golf?
He plays a lot, I hear.
Yeah. Well, anytime. I'm ready.
Well, he's of course, the sports guy in chief. I wonder what his future in sports is going to be after he leaves the presidency. Because when he talks about the NCAA, I heard something the other day. He was talking about the shot clock, and here's a guy that when he starts talking about sports, he really knows what he's talking about, doesn't he?
He does, and especially basketball. He's into basketball, but absolutely, he is all about sports. And we've had other presidents who like their home teams, like Clinton liked Arkansas, and you could go all the way through George 1 and George 2, both of the Bushes. They had their favorite sports teams, and the last Bush, of course, had a stake in the Texas Rangers, and he was a huge sports fan. But I think he's the most rabid of the recent presidents would be Obama.
Yeah, I think it's probably because you just don't want to turn on Fox News, obviously, or MSNBC or any of the news networks, because all you're going to get is a bunch of. But if you turn on ESPN, it's all good, isn't it? It's just all so positive. Isn't that really America's fascination with sports? Is it's just last night we were watching. My dad, my 91-year-old dad, was over at my house. We were watching. What was the game? I can't remember the name of the game now. It was one of the games where the team had a chance. It was a last-second shot, and it was a 3-pointer. It was going to be a buzzer beater if he made it. If he didn't make it, they lose, and he lost it. My dad said that made his entire day because the cameras showed that player who missed the shot and the look on his face. And that was, he said, it was just priceless. And that's what sports, it's like no other thing. Isn't that the fascination, whether the winning and the losing, especially this NCAA tournament, because a lot of these guys are not going to be professionals. They're college guys. They all want to be pros, but only a few of them are going to make it. That might be the last shot he ever makes or takes as a college player. Isn't that the fascination with it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is. It's just pure adrenaline, athleticism, the moment where you can be the hero or kind of the GOAT, because these kids take it hard, and I would too. If I was, you talk about hitting a winning shot or missing a winning shot. It was like what happened with that UCLA game and SMU, where SMU looked like they were going to win, and then there was a goaltending call. So you have a player that goes up just a little too high, and then that changes the whole fate of what could have happened with that team. So, there's something about that, the drama. It's the drama.
We try to talk about how college sports is corrupt and this and that because the players they're really not student athletes. They're there just to play basketball, but it doesn't matter. When you're watching them play, you have such respect for them when you see how hard they put their effort into it. And who was the coach that came on in the after game? It was crying at the microphone last night.
Oh yeah, just so distraught over losing a game. Yeah, absolutely. Brutal.
Anyway, but your history as a sports fan, you said you Stanley Cup. You had an uncle that won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, my uncle Bernie Perrant is his name. He played with the Philadelphia Flyers, and they won back-to-back Stanley Cups in the 70s. And I was really young, but I realized what was happening there, and it was so unbelievably exciting. It was just a crush of fan love in Philly. They had bumper stickers that said, "Only the Lord saves more than Bernie Perrant."
And so are you from Philly?
I'm from Philly originally, yes.
Oh God, those are the craziest fans on the planet, aren't they? Philly fans?
Philly fans get a bad rap in one way. We keep hearing about snowballs and Santa Claus, but they're rabid fans in the sense that they truly, truly live and breathe the sports teams, whether it's the Eagles or the Flyers or the 76ers, which are the 76ers, who can even cheer for them, or the Philadelphia Phillies or any of the other secondary, I'd call them, teams. Absolutely, they're diehard fans. You know, I live in Dallas now. My syndicated show, the network's in Minneapolis, but I've got a studio at my house. And in Dallas, I like to say that they're kind of the social fans. If things are going really well and the team is pumping and going, then they're really paying attention. But even then, you have fans that are all about the social and really don't know the game or aren't rabid about the players. And it's a whole different atmosphere than it is from Philadelphia or, let's say, Detroit or Boston. I think the fans are different.
So Silver Linings Playbook was your family?
No, not quite, but it was pretty funny, wasn't it? Robert De Niro, just crazy with the whole Eagles thing and superstition.
I mean, there was nothing better than that. It was just too much. It just speaks volumes about the whole Philadelphia sports fan.
Yeah, again, just like I said, it's just that whole rabid
crazy
nonsense. I mean, and here's the other thing. One thing about Philly, and now they're trying to curb this a lot. The sad thing about sports is, especially if you're taking kids to sports games, you have to be careful, and hopefully have good fans. People just get too drunk.
Yeah,
they do the tailgating,
yeah.
And it's not that we're on a college campus and woohoo, let's have 20 kegs. And when you get that kind of person in the stands, or a couple of them, that's when it leads to mayhem and chaos, and sometimes really sad things. We've seen what's happened, you know, with some people that have gotten beat up and near death, and that's just insane. That should never happen.
Yeah. Well, and I remember going to see a prize fight once in New Jersey, and it turns out that, of course, it was basically every person there was from Philly, and you know, they know what they're doing. They know their sports. You can't get away from that.
Yeah, it's tough. I agree. And there's, like I said, there are fans that are good about it, but then when you add alcohol, that becomes the elixir that's dangerous.
So let's see. You also cover horse racing. So what's going on? You got the Kentucky Derby coming up. Are you going to go down and run your show from there?
Yeah, I'm talking to somebody now about doing it. It looks like we are going to do that. We just are in the final stages of making the arrangements with the sponsor and stuff. But I probably will be there, and I can't wait. That's such a fun day. You want to talk about a sports mecca, and you're there on those hallowed grounds and at Churchill, and everybody's dressed up with their hats, and they're excited and talking about the possibilities. And it's a little bit of both. You got the true horse people, but you just have people that are there for the excitement and the buzz that happens in the 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, and the races that lead up to it. It's a whole day. It's a whole day deal, and I say it's a bucket list item for anyone because it's a lot of fun. Well,
that's what I was just going to say. You read my mind. A bucket list. I got to go to at least one Derby before I die, and I've never been. So that's why I say it's on the list.
Absolutely, you should go. It's so fun, and your daughters would like it. I mean, if you wait a little bit, let them get a little older, and take them, and it would just be so much fun. They would love it, and horses are beautiful animals, and you see them in the paddock, and they walk them around, and it's that whole pageantry thing and the history. I love history, and the people in Kentucky are so proud of Churchill and the whole idea that they've got this one day in racing that everybody watches and pays attention to.
So as we move then into the spring here, who's your pick to in baseball this year? Are you a Philadelphia fan, or do you're living in Dallas now? So who's gonna make it or break it in baseball this year?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think the Tigers are always going to be tough. They're going to be in there.
I see they've got Price as their opening day starter. I thought that was kind of a tough for old Verlander to kind of take him off the but he's no longer the ace up there in Detroit.
He's no longer the ace, and see that's when you know it's good, because the manager, if the manager's going to make the right moves and that manager's on the hot seat, then that's what you got to do. You got to put the best person out there. Start with the ace and work from there, and you can always tweak it, and that changes sometimes during the year with injuries and everything else. And you mentioned Philadelphia, and I think Philadelphia is going nowhere fast. I wouldn't pick them out of the East. There's no way. Atlanta, somehow they always find a way to be there. But then you look at the Dodgers and how close they came last year.
So much talent.
Yeah, they got too much talent. I wouldn't count the Dodgers out of it at all. And what I was going to say about mentioning A-Rod, if the Yankees have get a little bit of decent production out of A-Rod, but all the way around, they don't have Derek Jeter this time. All the way around the bases, you can never count them out if they get it going. So I would say you could see the Yankees there, and of course the Giants. How can I forget the Giants? Look at last season. You got to give them some credit. The Giants will be hanging around toward the end. Where you really can see teams forming, George, I think, is when you get to the halfway point, you get to the All-Star break right before that, and then you get a better sense of who's really together, because baseball is a long season, and sometimes teams that look really good in the first couple of months, they fade, they have injuries, production, rolls off. Think about a sport. Can you imagine if you and I had this hanging over our heads where 30% is the best? Meaning, if you're a 300 hitter, you're incredible. But then you start to get lower, and sometimes guys lose their swing. They get in a slump, and it makes a big difference as you get toward that all-star point.
It is a long season, and you see these teams that are doing really, really well in May. And look at Oakland A's last year; they were just dominating, just best record in baseball. And then they made the big trade for Lester, and wow, they fell apart in they still made the playoffs, or did they? Did they actually make But they got knocked out, I guess, in the play-in game.
They got knocked out early though, and it looked like they were going to be the team, that this was finally going to be the team that was going to, get off the hump, and it didn't happen for them. And that's the take on the A's. They get you excited, they get there, and then they lose. They don't make it to the World Series. Geez, they were a team of destiny.
Yeah, well, when they made the trade, they were going to be at least not have to do a play-in game. I think they were in a one-and-done situation, and they lost. That was it. They were done. Yeah, we were talking about USA Today Sports Weekly, and I see Didi Gregorius is on the cover of the March 11th issue, which was just a week ago. He's Jeter's successor, I guess, at shortstop. So the Yankees are going to be a whole new team without any of those. It's now with Jeter gone. It's a whole completely different team. But you never know what's going to happen in baseball. Who's in the American League East? Do you think is going to? The Orioles were dominant last year, but they've lost a lot of their big guns.
Yeah, and that's what happens, the whole retooling. I'll tell you what, just purely coming out, if I were looking at lineups and I were thinking, I was talking about the NL East and what was going to happen there, because I didn't think Philadelphia was going to make it. A team, if I just pull one team out of the books and don't worry about whether it's National League or American League, I would look at the Nationals. I would look at the Nationals being somebody that really emerges. I mean, if you think they fell to the Giants, as I mentioned, the Giants, you can't count them out. Remember, it was 4 games, but they fell apart. But I think this time they are really a team of destiny. They have Scherzer. They brought him in. I mean, look at what he can do to a rotation. They have Strasburg. I was just writing a baseball piece the other day, and it's fresh in my mind. They have Doug Fister, Gonzalez, Zimmerman, and if they're healthy, they've got a deep rotation, and that's what it takes to knock off those October blues. I mean, if you've got a good, solid starting core and a bullpen, and you've got an anchor, and they have that in Drew Storen, they're probably going to be the team to beat. Remember, they got, even in the outfield, they got Bryce Harper, who's incredible, whether he's on deck or he's in the outfield. So I would say that they're the team that could win the World Series. If I go to Vegas, which I am in the next month or two, I'll put a future bet on them for fun.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Nationals, and they're kind of a local team for us here. I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia, so I'm kind of they're actually one of our kind of local teams, even though they're about a 4-hour drive from us here. Well, that brings us to the NBA, which is reaching its as soon as March Madness ends, basketball focus then finally goes to the NBA. Although it's a great game and incredible players. What's going to happen there? I see that Kevin Durant is out for the season, so Oklahoma's done. Cleveland is rising. They look like the team to beat in the East, right?
Yeah, I think they are going to be the team to beat in the East. I mean, here you have LeBron James. Finally, he's home, and like you said, they're rising. You're starting to see them really come into their own. I think if you look at Cleveland, that would be a team I would put up there. Also, what's going to happen with the Hawks? I mean, they keep pumping up the best record, but can they close the deal when you get further down the stretch?
That's what I think. That's what I think, that people are going to be betting against them, even though they've got the record. That's going to be when you go to Vegas. That's going to be the question, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because that's the thing. Okay, so great, they're winning, but what happens once you get to that second season, which is the playoffs? Then, sometimes that's where you see the holes that are created, and that's where Cleveland could really rise because of the experience, I think, of LeBron James. He's a difference maker on the floor. Even on a bad night, he's still very solid, and it's hard to go against him. And, you said the key thing, if you've got Kevin Durant out, he's the second best player to me in basketball. That's huge, and that changes the fate of the Thunder.
And the Cleveland's got this big 7-footer they traded for, who's just playing really well, isn't it? That's become the big difference with Cleveland. I think they're a different team than they were at the beginning of the season. Now that because they've had a chance to gel with LeBron and Irving. And who's that 7-footer they've got? He's a true big man that. LeBron's never had a guy like that big in the middle that can play defense and score.
Yeah, and you know what? It used to be that everybody was looking for the big man. Remember Sean Bradley, how people would pick him up no matter what, but I think he was the king of the flop. That's what I called him anyway. He used to be with the 76ers. He was so tall.
Right.
He may have been one of the all-time tallest guys in hoop. And, the thought was if you have the big guy in the middle, I mean, that's going to make the difference. Look, it has for so many teams, and then it was a bust. So it's a question of, or he was a bust. So it's a question of whether or not Cleveland has the right guy, and having the guy in the middle, how much difference does that make? How much pressure does that take off of LeBron James, and how much room do you get from that? How many more rebounds can you get as a result of that? And if you're tough around the boards, boy, that makes such a big, big difference, doesn't it?
Well, LeBron is one of those guys. That move back to Cleveland was the most. If he's not, he's the Tiger Woods of basketball in terms of a guy that you used to love to root against, and now a guy that you want to root for. It's just amazing what he's done to his. I mean, he's just one of those guys. He's like, he's going to end up. Becoming like the Derek Jeter of basketball at some point. He's going to be one of those guys that's just revered ultimately, I think, when it's all done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the question. This would be a future great bar argument. Who is the best player all time in basketball? And, you could put qualifications on it, but just flat out who's the best player. I think right now, and you could go through different eras, and I could name a ton of players, and you probably could too, but how do you go against Michael Jordan? There's kids that never saw Michael Jordan play today that would tell you about Michael Jordan. And is LeBron James going to be the guy that challenges that and knocks him off the mantle? I mean, he's got to win some more championships, I think, to make that happen, though.
Well, what's cool about LeBron is with Jordan, he always was the scorer. He always scored. LeBron's one of those guys that goes out there and finds different ways to win. He's like a Magic Johnson kind of a character. If he's got to score, he scores. If he doesn't have to score, he doesn't. Jordan was always the guy that had to score. And so that's what, to me, is a cool thing about LeBron, is he's out there letting Irving get 60 points the other night or something. That never happened on a Bulls team with Jordan there.
Yeah, and you're right, because there's a big difference with the big three there, LeBron James, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, big difference. And that's why so many people are picking them to finish on top of the NBA East and then ultimately to maybe just close the whole deal because there's more sharing going on. And if you've noticed in the interviews, there's a lot of cred that LeBron will give to the other players.
Right.
Especially Love, especially even Sean Marion. People you're like, who? Off the bench, so-and-so comes in, and he does that. Whatever the game is, he'll do that a lot because he knows so much of the attention centers on him.
But he's used to that role because in Miami it was Dwayne Wade's team. Even though he came and joined that team, he knew this guy's already won a championship here. And it was Dwayne Wade's team, even though LeBron joined him. So he's comfortable in that role, even though everybody knows that you're LeBron James and you're the baddest player on the planet. He's comfortable with saying this is another guy's team. That's what I think. That's one of those guys that gives me a lot of respect for him, and I think it's gonna, I don't know, it just makes him a real interesting player in that sense.
Yeah, I think so too. Hey, I wanted to bring it back around because we were talking about the concussion thing. And one of my buddies is listening, and he's like, think of the player you guys can't think about. Or can't think of. It's Chris Borland that we couldn't think of.
Okay.
The San Francisco 49ers. And he was a guy who had that, like I said, terrific rookie season, but now he dumped out of the game because of the health scare. And that's interesting because we're talking here about, basketball. They're not thinking about that in basketball. But that's what you have to think about, I guess, now with the NFL, like we mentioned.
The less physicality, and we've gone to less physicality in basketball now too, in order to get more speed and more scoring, and the boring basketball games that we used to see in the NBA a few years back, when it was just it's such a better game when it's up tempo and moving down the court. That's what people want to see, is the faster game. You're still going to see that physicality down under the basket, but we want to see the Kevin Durant's. We want to see the scoring.
Oh, absolutely. It is about the scoring, isn't it?
So, listen, I am really fascinated. AmericaTonight.net. We've just been going on and checking out your website here, Katie. It's pretty cool.
Cool. Nice. It was just fun being on with you. I had a lot of fun.
So you do this 4-hour show, and you cover politics and law and sports and just anything that just comes up, right? Anything that there's the news of the day. How much of your show is slanted towards sports, politics, law? How do you break it down?
Well, I think a lot of it will depend on what I think people should talk about or what I think people are talking about. So I kind of mix it up. It depends on the day. So that's why I said every day is different. It's hard to plan too far in advance because then I would have shows that were too canned in the sense that something big happens, you got to scrap it and you got to see what's going on and hit that right note, You
have a Twitter feed and see what people are you kind of get a little feedback as to what the news of the day is. How do you go about finding out what people are talking about so you know where to go?
Sure. Maybe it's an instinct from doing it for so long. I dig up what's happening and look at some hot headlines, and, of course, if there's any breaking news or whatnot. And I do look at the trends on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Real Radio Talk, or on Facebook. Facebook is good, too, because of whatever breaks or happens. There'll be a lot of chatter there. So usually the first thing I do is check headlines, and I've got people who I have a producer and he'll throw headlines my way, and he and I will talk, and we come up with what we think is the right plan.
Well, listen, we got to go. We're going to be going to a CBS News break. We have spent the last hour with Kate Delaney, who is author of Level the Playing Field, Balls, Brats, and Other BS. She has a syndicated radio show, AmericaTonight.net. Her next book is going to be What's Your Wow? So I got to work on my wow here, Katie. Thanks so much for being on the show. This was very cool. You're my favorite guest of all time.
George, I enjoyed it. Anytime. Call me back. I'd love to be back on.
Okay, great. We will definitely do that. And so thank you so much for Kate Delaney for being on our show. And this is Justice for All. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm George Yates, and we're going to be back here next Saturday from 2 to 4. And you have a great afternoon. Bye now.